I've been in a lot of trouble in my life, and so she and I have come to understanding that none of my bad behavior was her problem. I made my own bad decisions.
You might be surprised to hear that Tim Allen despised this co-star more than anybody else. The famous comedian who made a name for himself by making people laugh had strong feelings for a longtime colleague. Despite Tim Allen's cheerful on-screen demeanor and signature grunt, his connection with this specific co-star became far less amicable. If Tim Allen could feel so strongly about anything, who would it be? The root of the problem is a knotty past filled with miscommunication, professional choices that wounded Allen deeply, and accusations of treachery. Let's find out what really happened between Tim Allen and the co-star he supposedly detested. Famous connections abound in Hollywood, but not all on-screen partnerships convert to real-life friendships. In his remarkable career spanning more than 30 years in the entertainment industry, Tim Allen has collaborated with many actors. Allen has worked with some of Hollywood's most famous faces, including Tim the Toolman Taylor from Home Improvement and Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story films. Many of these connections began as business partnerships, but have now evolved into true friendships. Tom Hanks, who plays Allen in Toy Story, has been quite complimentary of him. Despite working together for such a short period of time on set, the two actors have maintained a cordial connection. One of Allen's closest on-set relationships was with Nancy Travis, with whom he co-starred for 9 seasons on Last Man Standing. They had fun shooting since they had great chemistry on screen and respected each other behind the scenes. In an interview, Allen cited his Home Improvement wife, Patricia Richardson's comment that their relationship was like a perfect marriage with to explain theirs. The convincing family dynamic that contributed to Last Man Standing's success for over a decade was created by their comfortable relationship, which allowed them to play off of one another organically. When Richard Kay, who played Home Improvement's Al Borland, and Allen met for the History Channel series Assembly Required, it was clear that their friendship had progressed beyond their days on the program. These supportive connections demonstrate Allen's ability to develop meaningful ties with his co-workers, which further intrigues us about his tremendous animosity for one co-star in particular. Tim Allen fought his way up the ladder of stand-up comedy before he got famous. There were bumps in the road, such as when he moved from comedy clubs to television. With a cast that featured both unknowns and young performers, Allen found himself in the limelight in 1991 when Home Improvement premiered. Due to the inherent pressure that comes with being the show's star, Allen periodically displayed passionate moments, which contributed to the show's popularity. Playing his wife Jill Taylor, Patricia Richardson knew personally how these tensions felt. Richardson subsequently admitted that the two had disagreements over ideas behind the scenes, despite the fact that they got along well on screen. "Tim was really enthusiastic about the show," she remarked during an interview. "It was not always easy to work with the intensity that came over as passion." Richardson maintained that despite these instances, she and Allen respected one another even when they were at odds. Allen, too, was acclimating to the rigors of television production during Home Improvement's early seasons. It was easy for tempers to flare due to the long hours and constant pressure to perform well. When it came time to polish sequences, Allen could be quite picky, according to some crew workers from that era. "Tim knew what was funny and what wasn't," reminisced one former staff writer. "Everyone engaged in the production wasn't always pleased with his forthright attitude. If something didn't work, he'd let you know quickly." With the increasing popularity of Home Improvement, Allen's influence over the show also increased. After the show became successful, Allen started to feel greater ownership over it, which caused tension with the writers and other actors. Although his natural sense of humor was well respected, some people struggled to deal with his increasing power. These tense exchanges, meanwhile, were only the beginning of what would turn out to be Allen's most troubled business engagement. The cast's everyday lives were transformed when Home Improvement became one of ABC's biggest hits in the 1990s. For Tim Allen, this meant transitioning from stand-up comedian to television star virtually overnight. The popularity of the program led to film roles, such as in the Santa Claus and Toy Story, which solidified his position in Hollywood. But this meteoric rise wasn't without complications, particularly when managing relationships with co-stars whose careers were also taking off. The young actors who played Alan's sons on Home Improvement, Zachary Ty Bryan, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and Taron Noah Smith, quickly developed their fan bases. Particularly among the teens, Thomas became a romantic hero, with weekly fan letters totaling thousands and covers of many periodicals. As their popularity grew, balancing the demands of a hit show with their burgeoning careers created scheduling conflicts and shifting priorities that Alan sometimes struggled to understand. Alan, who had worked for years to achieve success, occasionally expressed frustration with what he perceived as a lack of appreciation from some of the younger cast members. "I came up the hard way," he reportedly told a crew member. "These kids don't know how lucky they are." This generational disconnect became more pronounced as the show progressed, particularly with one young co-star whose ambitions extended beyond Home Improvement. The dynamic on set began to shift as certain cast members started receiving offers for other projects, movie roles, voice acting opportunities, and other television appearances, which created scheduling challenges for Home Improvement producers. While Alan remained firmly committed to the show that had launched him to stardom, he noticed that not everyone shared his singular focus. This divergence in professional priorities laid the groundwork for what would eventually become his most contentious co-star relationship. Behind the scenes, the seemingly perfect family portrayed on Home Improvement masked growing tensions as the show entered its later seasons. The strain between certain cast members became increasingly difficult to hide. Crew members occasionally witnessed heated discussions after the cameras stopped rolling, and the once harmonious set developed undercurrents of tension that affected the working environment. Tim Allen set the tone for many of these interactions, as the jovial star's perfectionist tendencies meant that scenes were often reshot multiple times until he was satisfied, leading to long days that tested everyone's patience. One episode director noted, "Tim knew exactly how he wanted a joke to land. If it didn't work the first time, we'd keep going until it did." While this approach resulted in quality television, it created an intense working atmosphere that not everyone appreciated. The writers' room also experienced the effects of these dynamics. As Alan gained more creative control, he began rejecting storylines and dialogue that didn't align with his vision for the show. This caused friction with the writing staff, some of whom felt their creative input was being dismissed. There were days when entire scripts would be overhauled because Tim wasn't happy with them. A former writer recalled, "It could be demoralizing after putting so much work into something." The relationships between the actors playing the Taylor family also grew complicated as the show progressed. While they portrayed a tight-knit family on screen, the reality behind the scenes was more complex. Patricia Richardson later revealed that maintaining the appearance of familial harmony sometimes required professional acting both on and off camera. "We were like any family. We had good and bad days," she explained. "Some days we all got along great, and other days we just did our jobs and went home." As Home Improvement continued its successful run, these behind-the-scenes tensions remained largely hidden from the public. Fans saw only the finished product, a polished sitcom about a loving family navigating life's challenges with humor. The reality, however, included professional disagreements, creative differences, and one relationship that would eventually deteriorate beyond repair. Years after Home Improvement ended, several of Tim Allen's former co-stars began sharing their experiences working with him. These accounts painted a complex picture of a talented performer who could be generous and demanding depending on the circumstances. Patricia Richardson, who spent 8 seasons as Allen's on-screen wife, has offered perhaps the most balanced perspective. "Tim and I had great chemistry, but we also had our moments," she said in a 2020 interview. "He's intense about his work, which made the show better, even if it sometimes made the set tense." Richardson also addressed the significant pay gap between herself and Allen, revealing that she left before the planned 9th season, partly due to compensation concerns. Despite these issues, she has consistently defended Alan's character, stating, "Tim made me laugh every day. He had his issues like anyone, but was never inappropriate with me." This nuanced view suggests that while Alan wasn't always easy to work with, the relationship remained fundamentally respectful. More recently, actress Casey Wilson shared a starkly different experience from her brief time working with Alan on the Santa Clauses. Wilson described the interaction on her podcast as the single worst experience I've ever had with a co-star. She recounted Alan complaining to producers about her stepping on his lines during a scene and claimed he was dismissive and rude throughout their time together. When he was done, he was so rude. They never made eye contact and never said anything. It was so uncomfortable, Wilson stated, adding that Alan behaved as if she were the help rather than a fellow performer. Richard Kay, who played Al Borland for the entire Home Improvement run, has generally spoken positively about his experience with Alan. Their continued professional relationship suggests a genuine friendship, though Kay acknowledged that Alan's direct communication style could sometimes rub people the wrong way. "Tim always let you know where you stood," Kay said in a 2021 interview. "Not everyone responds well to that kind of honesty, but I always appreciated knowing exactly what he thought." Notably absent from many of these public discussions was Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who played middle son Randy Taylor. His reluctance to speak about his time on Home Improvement after leaving the show only fueled speculation about his relationship with Alan. While other child actors from the series occasionally reminisced about their experiences, Thomas maintained an unusual silence regarding his former TV father. As Home Improvement progressed through its middle seasons, subtle signs of strain appeared in the relationship between Tim Allen and Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Initially, the two seemed to share a mentor-protege bond, with Allen taking a fatherly interest in Thomas's development as an actor. Early interviews showed genuine affection between them, with Allen often praising Thomas's natural talent and professionalism despite his young age. "He's like a little adult," Allen told Entertainment Weekly in 1993. "Sometimes I forget he's just a kid because he's so good at what he does." However, the dynamic shifted around the 5th season as Thomas's popularity soared. His face appeared on magazine covers and posters in teenage bedrooms across America, and film offers started pouring in. While continuing to fulfill his Home Improvement obligations, Thomas took on voice work as young Simba in Disney's The Lion King, and starred in films like Tom and Huck and Man of the House. During production hiatuses, Allen reportedly began to feel that Thomas's growing success was affecting his commitment to the show. Production sources noted that scheduling became increasingly difficult as Thomas balanced his various projects. There were days when Jonathan would come to set directly from another job, clearly exhausted, and one crew member later revealed that Tim didn't always have patience for that, especially if it affected scene rehearsals. By the 7th season, the tension had become noticeable to everyone on set. In press interviews, Allen's comments about Thomas subtly changed in tone, focusing more on the young actor's ambition than his talent. When asked about Thomas's busy schedule in a 1997 interview, Allen remarked, "The kid's going to burn himself out before he's 20. I just hope he remembers where he got his start." This passive-aggressive comment hinted at growing resentment that would soon explode into something more serious. The breaking point came when Thomas approached producers about reducing his role in the 8th season to focus on his education. Allen, who had built his career on the success of Home Improvement, reportedly took this as a personal affront. The once warm relationship between the TV father and son had deteriorated into something decidedly cooler, setting the stage for the final breach that would cement their status as Allen's most strained professional relationship. The breaking point in the Home Improvement season marked a definitive turning point in the relationship between Tim Allen and Jonathan Taylor Thomas. After 7 years of playing Randy Taylor, Thomas left the show entirely, choosing instead to focus on his education. In September 1998, as the final season began airing, Thomas's absence was explained through a storyline that sent his character to Costa Rica for an environmental study program. What should have been a respectful parting of ways quickly became more contentious. Allen didn't hide his disappointment with Thomas's departure. In interviews promoting the final season, he made points about loyalty and commitment that were widely interpreted as criticisms of his former co-star. "It's a shame when someone who's been part of a family decides to walk away," Allen told TV Guide. Then, when pressed about Thomas's educational pursuits, Allen's response was skeptical. "School is important, but so is honoring your commitments." The situation worsened when Thomas appeared in the 1998 film I'll Be Home for Christmas, which was released during what would have been his filming schedule for Home Improvement. Allen viewed this as confirmation that Thomas had misrepresented his reasons for leaving the show. In an uncharacteristically direct criticism, Allen told TV Guide, "It was about going to school, but then he did some films. Did he want to do films? Did he want to go to school? I mentioned that I was confused. I don't think he liked that." Perhaps the greatest source of tension came when Thomas declined to appear in the series finale of Home Improvement. While Zachary Ty Bryan and Taron Noah Smith returned to give the show a proper send-off, Thomas's absence was conspicuous. Allen reportedly took this as the ultimate sign of disrespect, personally and to the show that had launched Thomas's career. "I thought it was kind of odd," Allen later commented. "You'd think he'd want to return and say goodbye." By the time Home Improvement wrapped production in May 1999, the relationship between Allen and Thomas had deteriorated beyond repair. What had once been a seemingly genuine father-son-like bond had devolved into mutual resentment and public sniping. For Allen, who prided himself on the family atmosphere of his shows, Thomas's decisions represented not just a professional disagreement, but a personal betrayal. The rift between Tim Allen and Jonathan Taylor Thomas was characterized by a notable silence. Unlike other Hollywood feuds in public arenas, this one manifested primarily through absence, both communication and public acknowledgement. Thomas essentially disappeared from the entertainment industry, declining interviews and avoiding Hollywood events where he might encounter his former TV father. This retreat from public life only intensified Allen's frustration with his former co-star. When asked about Thomas in interviews promoting his new projects, Allen's responses were tellingly brief. During a 2000 junket for Toy Story 2, a reporter inquired about his relationship with the younger actor. Allen responded curtly, "We don't keep in touch," before quickly changing the subject. This avoidance became a pattern, with Allen either deflecting questions about Thomas or answering with minimal information that suggested an ongoing coolness between them. Thomas, for his part, maintained an even more steadfast silence regarding Allen. During his rare public appearances and interviews in the early 2000s, he focused exclusively on his education and future plans, never mentioning his time on Home Improvement or his relationship with his former TV father. When directly asked about Allen in a 2003 interview, Thomas merely stated, "We had a professional relationship, neither confirming nor denying any tension." This mutual cold shoulder extended beyond interviews. Industry events that could have facilitated reconciliation became missed opportunities. Thomas was noticeably absent when the Home Improvement cast received a TV Land Award in 2009. When asked about the missing cast member, Allen simply said, "Jonathan has his own life now," with an expression that reporters described as decidedly unenthusiastic. There was a lack of communication between the two that spoke volumes. While Allen maintained connections with other Home Improvement alumni, including regular contact with Richard Kay and Zachary Ty Bryan, Thomas remained the exception. This prolonged silence, lasting well over a decade, suggested that whatever had transpired between them had cut deeper than a mere professional disagreement. For Allen, who valued loyalty and team spirit on his sets, Thomas's actions represented something he couldn't easily forgive or forget. Allen has never explicitly called Thomas an evil piece of *T in public, but multiple sources claim that his private comments about the younger actor were far less restrained. This suggests that the depth of feeling went beyond a simple professional disagreement and into personal betrayal. The paths Tim Allen and Jonathan Taylor Thomas took after Home Improvement couldn't have been more different, highlighting the fundamental differences that contributed to their strained relationship. Allen doubled down on his entertainment career, seamlessly transitioning from one successful project to another. After Home Improvement ended in 1999, he continued to voice Buzz Lightyear in the Toy Story franchise, starred in the Santa Claus sequels, and eventually returned to television with Last Man Standing in 2011. His commitment to show business never wavered, building a career spanning over 3 decades. Thomas, in stark contrast, stepped away from the spotlight almost entirely after completing high school. He enrolled at Harvard University, later transferring to Columbia University to study philosophy and history. His occasional acting roles became increasingly rare as he prioritized his education and privacy. This dramatic shift from Hollywood puzzled many fans and industry insiders, including Allen, who had built his life around entertainment. The fundamental difference in their career approaches reflected deeper personality differences that had always simmered beneath the surface. Allen, who had worked as a stand-up comedian before breaking into television, valued the traditional entertainment career path of consistent work and public visibility. Thomas, who had been acting since childhood, sought intellectual fulfillment and normalcy outside the constraints of celebrity. Allen occasionally made comments suggesting he found Thomas's choices baffling. During a 2011 interview promoting Last Man Standing, he remarked, "I still don't understand walking away from a successful career to go to school. That's just me, though." While seemingly innocuous, this statement revealed Allen's continued inability to relate to Thomas's priorities and decision-making process. Their divergent paths after Home Improvement reinforced the incompatibility that had contributed to their falling out. Allen remained firmly entrenched in the entertainment world, while Thomas deliberately stepped away. This fundamental difference in values and life goals made any lasting reconciliation difficult, as neither man could fully understand or appreciate the other's choices. After nearly 15 years of estrangement, the entertainment world was surprised when Jonathan Taylor Thomas appeared in a 2013 episode of Tim Allen's sitcom Last Man Standing. This unexpected reunion sparked speculation about whether the two had finally buried the hatchet. Thomas guest-starred as a restaurant owner who employed Allen's character's daughter, and their on-screen interaction gave no hint of their troubled history. Behind the scenes, the reconciliation appeared tentative at best. Sources close to the production reported that Allen and Thomas maintained professional courtesy but lacked the warmth of a truly mended relationship. They were polite to each other between takes, one crew member noted, but they weren't exactly catching up like old friends. Another source described their interactions as cordial but distant, suggesting that genuine forgiveness remained elusive. While open hostility had subsided, when asked about working with Thomas again, Allen offered measured praise that focused on Thomas's professionalism rather than their personal connection. "Jonathan is a smart guy," Allen told Yahoo TV. "He's always been wonderful as an actor. Then he went to college and found other interests." This carefully neutral statement avoided mentioning their past conflict while acknowledging Thomas's talents. Thomas made a few more appearances on Last Man Standing over the next season, even directing an episode in 2016. This continued association suggested at least a professional détente, though insiders maintained that the relationship never regained the mentor-protégé closeness they once shared. According to one writer on the show, they were able to work together effectively, but there was always this sense of history between them that everyone could feel. The attempted reconciliation represented progress but fell short of resolving their long-standing tension. Neither man publicly addressed their past issues, choosing instead to present a united professional front without delving into the personal aspects of their relationship. The reality proved more complicated and less satisfying for fans hoping to see a heartwarming reunion between the TV father and son. While Tim Allen has had disagreements with several actors throughout his career, it's clear with which co-star he had the most contentious relationship. His falling out with Jonathan Taylor Thomas appears to have affected him more deeply and lasted longer than any other. The intensity of Allen's reaction to Thomas's departure from Home Improvement, particularly his public questioning of Thomas's honesty about his reasons for leaving, revealed how deeply he took the situation. His continued cool references to Thomas years after the show ended, even as he maintained warm relationships with other cast members, further suggest that this wound was slow to heal. Although Allen and Thomas have since worked together again in a limited capacity, those familiar with both actors describe their current relationship as cordial. According to observers on the set of Last Man Standing, the genuine warmth that characterized their early years on Home Improvement has never fully returned. This feud is particularly notable because it occurred between an established adult star and a young actor who was essentially growing up on set. Allen's apparent inability to accept Thomas's decision to chart his own course, combined with what many view as Thomas's misleading explanation for his departure, created a perfect storm for lasting resentment. To this day, Allen's relationship with Jonathan Taylor Thomas remains the most controversial he has had with any other co-star. Tim Allen never hated anyone more than Jonathan Taylor Thomas, the co-star he once mentored, but ultimately came to see as disloyal. Though time has softened some of the hostility, the scars of their falling out remain visible to those who know them well. Now we want to hear from you. What's your favorite Tim Allen role? Let us know in the comments below.